Check. Okay, so full disclosure, I cried quite a few times on today's podcast. You heard a few of them, you didn't hear a few of the other ones because I had the absolute guest Will Evans from Will Evans Music. And we talked about the one mistake that cost him 10 years of marketing as creative, how putting yourself in harm's way helps you discover who you are, how to ride the waves of life to continue to create, how to tell when it's time to shelf your song or launch it, which applies to any entrepreneur, product, service, offer. When trying to force its finishing, it's normally not good. The only path to success is alignment, how to find a why and drive that will always keep you pushing, and how an honest measuring stick will keep you driving towards your vision. And the final part of how comparison syndrome is the loaded, not supportive way of looking at life. And this thing was riddled with wisdoms, life lessons from a gentleman whose music I've been utilizing for the last couple of years to help on my journey. Check him out on Spotify, Will Evans. Favorite song by me, Rise. Next one is Adam and Eve. And then The Darkness are my top three from him. But today's episode is a doozy loaded with wisdom. Take notes, listen again, check out his music. But without further ado, let's get into the episode. We are recording. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show, and I can almost guarantee you that there will be tears in this episode because today I am joined by somebody who inspires me, motivates me. This man I would describe as walking wisdom. He's a husband, a father, surfer, soul filler, people-loving, heart-centered, sovereign man. He's a singer, can play the didgeridoo, is a master of drums, and has a way to tattoo my soul when it comes to believing and living in my truth. And I don't talk a lot about my inner game. You see it on Instagram, you see it elsewhere, but I'm pretty protective of what I fill my soul with. And I found a man today who creates music and creates art that helps people move. And so today I just want to welcome to the show, Will. Will, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No, of course. Of course. I keep practicing. I tell everybody that I've said this before on the podcast. I'm addicted to like underground freestyle rap, but I just love the creative process of being able to flow. And I can't sing, I can't play instruments, so I try to use marketing as talking as my art form. So I just I riff that way.
That was an amazing intro. If it was just off the top like that, you basically are freestyling there.
I love it. I love it. So
I,
how
w-
about
I was impressed with myself, and I'm like, wow, this guy sounds really cool. Who's he talking
yeah,
about?
yeah, see, it's always good to have a mirror. I love it. I love it. So you've been in this game for a long time. You've been in bands. You've been on your solo game. You've been obviously playing with music and being a creator for a long time. And I love to ask this question of anybody who creates. And so when you look back at your career, however long it's been, what has been one of the biggest mistakes that you've made in your art or in your journey? And what's the lesson that you've taken away from it?
Biggest mistakes. I think uh, from like a business side, as an entrepreneur, starting a band without putting my name in it
Mm,
was probably the biggest mistake that I've made because looking back now on nearly 20 years in music, I lost the first decade of work. I wouldn't say lost it. I lost all the residual marketing and the algorithms and stuff. Uh, that would have helped a lot, kind of give me a little bit of a leg up
mm,
when I then launched into a solo career, which was in 2013 was when I switched over to a solo career, and that was like ground zero. I was like completely fresh, starting over. All the clubs we used to play and sell, you know, 600 to 1,000 tickets in, wouldn't book me.
mm.
So it was kind of it was also I guess um, it was also my greatest lesson because it really drove me to just keep working at my craft and not get so hung up on the numbers
Mm,
the and just really hone in on what it was that made me, you know, take this path in the first place.
yeah.
What's interesting was I was listening to a friend's podcast recently, and they it's called the age-old question, and what they do is they take these questions pertaining to music or yeah, mainly music and like the history of rock music and that type of thing, and they break them down. And the question that they were focused on last week when I was tuning in was, does it require suffering to make great art? And I was just so like torn by that idea, that question, because obviously I've gone through a lot of suffering to be able to expose my music or to get it through. It took a lot of grit and lifestyle adjustments
Mm.
for not only myself but to put my family through in order for me to get this music out there. And yet at the same time, I feel like the luckiest person in the world to be able to experience um, life so deeply, because music to me is literally an emotion. It's a part of me that I was blessed with, and it would be uh, against my very person, my existence, to keep that from coming through. So, anyways, that was kind of I went off there a little bit, but feel
I
free to rein me in.
I actually no, I actually really really love it, and I enjoy kind of that part of it because what when you said that quote, like what came up for me, like one of the things that I find so powerful about your music and your art is like I can feel the depth, like I can feel the texture, and I've never quote unquote call myself a music listener. Like I've never been really big into listening to music or anything, but like you like transmute emotion and transmute feelings and textures and things like through your music. And so when you say like, do we have to do suffering to create great art? My question is like, what has your life or your journey been like to get you to this point to where music is a part of you, but the way that you express like this alignment of soul and inclusion and congruency and depth just feels like there's a story underneath it that you've kind of walked to get there. So can you kind of give me like the arc and the background of like how you got here?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with my upbringing. Was I grew up singing in the Baptist church,
Mm,
and that was really from a young age I discovered this kind of natural gift that I had to hear harmony and to um, I something about the natural reverb of the Baptist church that we went to, and that's kind of stuck with me all my life. I just love that resonating tone, and acoustic music in particular has always kind of been um, my foundation. I've delved in electric and electronic and all those different styles, but if I can make the sound without amplification, it seems to me more rooted in um, kind of grounds me more. So a lot of my music is inspired by being in nature. I've been a lifelong surfer and an environmentalist, and I think that kind of comes through a lot in the songwriting, and a lot of the music is written, while I'm immersed in those places. I'll write verses while I'm sitting on my board out in the middle of, New England in the middle of winter. It's, the water's 36 degrees, and it's just that's my church now is where I can be in those spaces of complete unattachment from uh, this kind of new age world that we live in um, of technology and
mhm.
instant gratification. You kind of stick yourself into nature, and you know, there's no compassion. The ocean doesn't know compassion. It's it's really like, you're putting yourself in harm's way, and when you figure out how you react to that, I think that's when you really discover who you are. Um, and so I always just feel like that transcends through sound. It's like sonic waves are the same thing as ocean waves. They've they begin somewhere, and as they get further apart, they spread out, and it's just kind of this interesting analogy I've realized over time is my life is all about riding waves,
Mm.
sound waves and rhythm. Are like the essence of who I am. So um, that's kind of the woo-woo version of, like how I've become musically inspired, and but I tell you, as a business person, which I know, you focus a lot on that. A lot of your listeners are more interested in that side of it too. Like I've definitely kind of struggled with that balance of, um, obviously we have to make a living to be able to
Hmm.
do to continue to make these albums and stuff. It's getting harder and harder as streaming revenues are abysmal compared to when we used to, have. I mean, even downloads were much better. 67 cents per dollar was the average for iTunes downloads, and I could almost guarantee after I put a album out that I could make back within the first quarter at least half of what I put into
Hmm.
it. And now, you it's been 2 years since I've released Rise, and I haven't even gotten maybe a quarter or halfway there. What it cost me to make it, and that's troubling as a a family man, and obviously family always comes first, and making sure that we're taken care of is important to me. And touring this year went away completely, so that was really my bread and butter, was the touring side of things. And I've always seen myself more of it as a live musician than a studio artist, because I get something off of the audience and the vibration that I can't explain, that really it really makes me believe in what I'm doing. And I put so much of myself into the performance, um, that I've had a hard time this year without that experience. I've done a lot of live streaming, but it's just, it's not the same at all to as being in the room with somebody
Hmm.
and feeling their energy and sharing energy with. And I think that's been obviously a huge issue for a lot of people this year, is that isolation we've been feeling. Um, but I'm anxious to get back to, that human connection, that experience of sharing energy with another person, and many people in my case. So again, I've kind of
No,
wandered from.
trust me, like your wanderings are like loaded with wisdom and nuggets. Like I have so many things, and the one thread that I think is so prevalent to pull. There's two questions, but the first one is you mentioned like delayed gratification, right? And what I think is so powerful about what you do is like you're out sitting in the ocean in New England, and I grew up in New England, so I know what those days are like, and I take ice baths every day to be reminded. But you're sitting out there and you're like, I'm writing a verse and I'm writing a verse, and then it could be a year, 2 years, 3 years before that thing comes out into the world, before you get feedback on it. I feel like that's one of the healthiest aspects of creation, is not being attached to that outcome immediately. So I wanted
Mhm.
to ask you about that creative process though, because you what you said, and I think it's so powerful as a lesson, is when you immerse yourself in space, like you create a container for yourself, and in that container you can flow, you can find your creativity, you can, for you it's the waves, for me it's walking meditations or ice baths or something like that. Like you create that space and you then fill that space. But once you're done in that space and like, you write that verse on your surfboard, right? And you come back, like, how do you know when it's time to ship it? Like, I feel like with lyrics and expression, like you could edit those things for days, weeks, months, years. Like, what's your measure of like, up, that's time to be a song, or that's a complete verse, or that's time to ship it? Because I feel like what happens in business, creation, entrepreneurship is we just get stuck in this trap of like, I can make it better, I can make it better, I can make it better, but it never sees the light of world. And so I would love to hear like what that's like for you.
Yeah, I that's a great question, and it kind of has different answers. Sometimes I'll, I mean, I have tons of songs that I've shelved because I just quite wasn't quite happy with where it ended up or landed, or it's maybe it just needs a few more tweaks. But generally, those songs I'm not too worried about because if if um, if I am working that hard to try to finish them, then chances are they're not that good.
Mm,
In my experience, the best music I've written is takes me a day to write, and and it's because you're so raw, you're so tapped into whatever emotion it may be, that you're trying to translate to art or to music in this case. It As you mentioned, you kind of hit this flow state where it's you're just acting as a conduit, and you just have to let yourself open up to that. And to me, that's like the best. I'll give you an example. I have a song called Family Tree, um, which I wrote in an hour, and that was just after my wife had her second miscarriage. And I was so raw, and I was in the middle of touring with Trevor Hall, and it really undid me because I wasn't there to. I could hear her, you know, pain and anguish over the phone, and I'm somewhere in the middle of the country on a tour bus, and I really had a hard time, because in one sense I was fulfilling my dream as a musician to be, arriving at this level where I'm finally on a tour bus after, 20 years of grinding it out and driving in vans and stuff around the country. And yet all I wanted in that moment was to be with my wife and hold her. And, for me, songwriting is such a therapy, um, that I just dove in, and that song came out, and I recorded it a week later, and it was the last song to get on the album. Um, it's amazing to me, like when that happens in that kind of goes back to that whole idea of like, do you need to suffer to create great art? And I mean, sometimes you do. I think, it's just it's maybe not it's maybe not always this a suffering, but it's really opening yourself up to be that conduit to whatever emotion is coming through, and letting it be unhindered, undistracted by, well, maybe we should cut the second verse because, it's not a radio friendly length or whatever. No, fuck that. Like
yes.
I've tried that. As soon as I played for, we did 4 albums with my old band, Barefoot Truth. And then, when I departed from that group and went on my own, my first album, I tried so hard to be poppy, kind of, Taylor Swift sensibilities with the songwriting, and I hated that. I hate that. The production on that album kills me now when I listen to it because it's not honest. It's not who I really am. But I was trying to get away from who I was because I wanted to restart myself and be this, be a new artist, and kind of represent myself in a different way than I had been before, just because I was connected to the band. But it took me 2 albums to get to back to where, in Rise, I just said, the hell with it. This is who I am. I'm going back to my roots, as an artist, as a songwriter, and I just kind of let that album flow. And it was a hell of a process because I had all kinds of other issues on the recording side of things where, the person I had originally recorded it with, he started doing the mixes for me, and they weren't really uh, coming through the way I was envisioning them, and so I wanted to take them to another producer to keep it a little more in vision with what I had, and that caused all kind of drama. And I don't do well with drama to begin with, but like business and art are notorious for having these
Mm-hmm.
issues, right? Of sensitive people who are working with other sensitive people, and nobody wants to piss each other off. So there's this like inadvertent kind of drama going on, and oh God, it was hell. But like finally got that record out, and just to get nominated for a Roots album of the year in New England was just like such validation for me. Like, okay, this is who I am. These songs, speak my truth, and it doesn't have to be a 3.5 minute pop song. Like that just isn't who I am. This is the people who need this music and this message will find it, and the hell with the rest of them.
Dude, I couldn't so we're recording this, and I'll just give context to everybody. I use a live switching platform, so when Will's talking, he can't see my face. I started crying when you were sharing that because the lessons of alignment, like Rise, by the way, is one of my absolute favorite albums. Like I can quote lyrics off the top of my head from that album because of your truth. And I love that you got back to where you belong, like to self expression, like to what I would call alignment, right? Like full alignment because it allows it to flow. And I think about like I had to walk away from 7-figure businesses and millions of followers because it was so out of alignment to me. It felt like it was like killing me. Like it felt like purgatory and I couldn't get out of it. And I get emotional thinking about the amount of people that I watch check boxes or fit into other people's boxes because of there's not this container, the ability to just self-express. And so I'm honored that you found that way back. And I have a question around that because you've been at this game for a long time, right? And we grew up, like I'm from New England, so I'm familiar up there. And you've been in this game for 20 years, like touring, musicians, going through family, situations with your wife and being on the road and all of it. And even hearing you talk about the process of you making music hurts my heart a little bit for how much resistance exists from I have this gift, this art, this flow, and then to see it come to culmination. It gives me a little anxiety thinking about, and I want to know how. Like, how do you keep pushing so much? Is it a really deep rooted why? Is it a very clear crystal vision? Is it I'm not getting off of it till I get there, but I would love to hear because what it sounds like is like I can taste the resiliency in your lyrics now, hearing you talk about this, and I want to
Mhm.
know what keeps you going so hard.
Mm. Well, I mean, honestly, it's conversations like this. It's connecting with folks who have found the music um, on their own by some means, and it seems like it landed in their lap just when they needed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll write back to those people. I've had several emails and messages of hey, this song, you know, really got me through my addiction, or this song helped me out through postgraduate school, whatever it might be. And and now having a daughter of my own and seeing the way she reacts to music and it's I can see that it's in her as well, and I feel like I would be um, despite maybe um, the difficulties of balance in life that we are faced with this career choice and the um, you know not being really sure when the next paycheck's coming, those type of questions that everybody thinks about. Um, I couldn't be honest with her as an adult if I didn't say, like this was what I had to do to show you that, this is who your father is, and this is it's important, to kind of leave. You start thinking about that word legacy, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and we're here for such a finite amount of time. Do I really care about, you know, having maybe, making $100,000 more a year, something like that, would that really change my life? And I don't think anyone could say that it would, you know, if you're able to comfortably, at least without, you know, fearing not being able to get the groceries, which thankfully we're in a good place where we're not we're not at that point. I think it would be, you know, a disservice, um, to myself and to society to not pursue this career and this path, um, because I just feel like I'm scratching the surface. I've got so much more to share, and I'm really arriving. Like, you know, after 20 years, I feel like I'm
Hmm.
just arriving at 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 the point where I know what I need to do, and I know the songs are coming so fast right now. I mean, we have a new child, so like that's been
Yeah.
super inspiring. But I have all these new emotions that, you know, I didn't realize were there even, and experiences that I'm able to now translate, into a way that is uniquely me, that seems to be connecting with people, and that to me is, you know, that's worth more than any paycheck, is that gratification of like, okay, this is so real and in alignment, as you were saying, um, with who I am as a person, and yeah, my vision is really to just keep at it as long as there's people out there that are, you know, really benefiting from it, and I think that there are.
Yeah, I will say, I just want to be and say that, like, don't forget the little guys, because I can feel it. Like, I will support you in any way that I can. Your music, you know, a lot of people listening to the podcast know this, right? But I spent 12 years of my life in the military. I witnessed things that human beings should never have to witness through combat tours and things like that. You have a few songs that literally every single time I meet a veteran, I text them one of the same three songs. Boom, 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 boom.
Mhm.
PTSD, depression, darkness, anxiety, crippling anxiety, separation, codependency. Like, it makes a massive difference. And
Mhm.
so I'm going to say this just in the middle of this episode for anybody listening. I'm going to tell you probably 8,000 times over the next couple months to go find Will Evans on Spotify, but now would be a good time. And don't let this one go. Like, go find it, go share it, go push it. I will come kick you in the shins with love if you don't. I will take over your phone and your computer and I will do it for you. But either way, like, I just need this to get out into the world. So, um, I just, there's so many. I'm totally fanboying right now too. Like, you bring out like this child in me because your music has helped me so much. And I'm not someone who's really been expressive a lot of my life, right? Like, I was afraid to express my emotions. I was afraid to be that happy kid because it
Mhm.
always got beat down, right? I was afraid to have
Mhm.
anything but control of the chaos because I would have got hit. And now I'm 38 years old with a family and quote unquote all the success on paper, and I'm finding what it's like to express for like the
Yeah.
first time, like to be running on the treadmill to the darkness and like just start like letting out a yell or a cry or a dance. And so it's an absolute gift what you unlock from people. And so I just wanted in the middle of the episode just to say thank you, um,
No.
for whatever that means. It means the world to me, and my kids get to have a father who's present and knowing himself to give that love back to them. And so I just wanted to say thank you.
That's incredible, man. I'm getting chills. That's that's exactly like I said. Like you couldn't, you know, you couldn't bottle that, and you know, it. I wish you could bottle that, because that's the when I'm in those moments, you know, on the road, or um, really kind of at a crossroads, which I come to so many times with this career of, why am I doing this? You know, when you're playing a Monday night in Pittsburgh and there's no one there, but you're just routed that way to get out to Chicago or whatever. It's, you know, as a introverted type of artist, who, you know, I'm surprised people show up at all, but when they don't, and it's, you know, you have to go through those gigs, which have there's been many of over the years. It beats you down the same way you were saying, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because you think for some reason it's something you've done wrong. It's hard to like let it go and just chalk it up to, you know, it's a Monday night in Pittsburgh. Nobody, people are people are working, and I don't mean to hate on Pittsburgh because I love playing there. Um, but it's this walk, this dance that you do with um, career and trying to figure out when you're alone out there, especially, on the road, it can just feel so isolating and you're stuck battling your own psyche and
Yeah.
I'm my biggest enemy when I'm out there because there's this chip on my shoulder that's pushing me and is competitive and um, wants that validation, right? Like, I listen to other artists in my genre or like on the radio, and I can't understand how come I can't be at that level or whatever. And that's such a loaded way of looking at life, like it's the killer of comparison is a killer of joy, right? It strips you of being in the moment of what you have and all that you've accomplished. And so trust me, a lot of these songs that I write for myself to try to to encourage myself. Because when I'm on stage and I'm singing my own words back to myself, it's like a mantra to me. If I was singing something that I didn't believe in, I'd kill myself. I'd be up there, and if nobody showed up, or even if they did, I feel like I would be deeply dissatisfied because it wasn't honest. It has to be, whatever it is that, is instilled in me, and maybe it's my father was just a very honest and like hardworking guy, came from nothing, and he's, worked to have a family of three and done well for himself, and that's just that inspiration. Every kid wants to outdo their father, I feel like, and or at least like be on the same level or just make them proud.
Hmm.
And I tried and tried and tried, and we'd have moments of flashes of glory with sold out shows and stuff, and then like back to like nobody showing up and me kind of battling through like, okay, like what do I have to do on this album to get people to pay attention? And I'm so over that now. It's more just I have a child. I want to make her proud and show her that her father, um, he believed in something, and that's, truth, honesty, all these things that I try to put into my music, compassion, um, and my music is for everybody. It's not.
Hmm.
That's the greatest joy and gift for me is when I'm at a show and there's, grandmothers and grandfathers and their like young children. I love that community,
Hmm.
that's the way it used to be. I feel like it was, you know, the whole town would show up and there would be, music would just come out of onto the streets and people would celebrate life and or it would be there for them when they were working through hardship. Music was a part of everything, right? And I feel like it's become so commercialized and like targeted, and I just want to go back to the rawness, the roots of what started it for me, singing in church. um, I didn't know what I was singing or what, if I believed in any of those things. And I've had many, that's a whole nother podcast is my relationship with man-made religion versus spirituality. But I know that I'm a spiritual being, and I know that the music I'm making now and for the future is going to be deeply rooted in community, optimism, connection of energy, and that's my truth.
Yeah, man, I can tell you right now that on the receiving end, that is what your music does. It's a bridge for me. Like I literally, this last week leading up to this interview, probably 25 new people have heard a few of your songs, and it doesn't matter what they listen to, what genre. Like your music has the ability. It it has integrity as the undertone and everything, and it just gives this feeling of safety. And I absolutely love it. And so it's doing what it needs. And I'm going to pin this moment right now, whatever day it is in 2021, that in 4 years ago, 4 years time, I'm going to text you a video and I'm going to be like, you remember this? I'm like, I just want you to know that you were right. But like, don't forget the little people. I will send you a video every time you have one of those doubts because it makes a difference. And so I want to actually ask you a couple of questions about your songs. So when you think back, I feel like asking an artist to pick their favorite song is like asking a parent to pick their favorite child. And so I'm not going to do that
Mm.
unless you want to disclose that. But there's a couple lyrics for me that made a big impact on my life. And one of them is from The Darkness. When the darkness is taking over, you better grab the wheel and drive. And that thing, through my addiction, through my life, and even every day, it still rings true to my soul that I felt like I was a victim to circumstance and that I had no control over the things that I had done or seen and war and drugs and, all those different pieces. And it was massive for me. And so, what is that song like? What do those lyrics mean to you? Like when you wrote it, like where did that come from for you? What was the intention behind that? What that song mean? Like I would just kind of love to hear some of your thoughts behind like those lyrics in that song because it is the most
Mm.
profound, beautiful, loving, and nurturing way to say do the shadow work, love yourself, and like get into action, take over your life. And it's so like gently and encouraging, but it
Mm.
really moves me. And so I would just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. So that song in particular actually is the one song that was a co-write, and so I can't take credit for that line.
Okay.
Um, but the I will say that the bridge in that song, uh, I kind of and in a lot. And what's funny is like I don't usually I don't like not I don't like writing with other people, but I just don't do it because I usually just I put this song, I just it just comes out of me and then it's done. It doesn't need to be. It's not like I need help working with somebody on a verse or whatever. I feel like it is done. It's written. And this song, my friend Billy, um, who is another artist actually with the same management agency that I'm with, and um, he opened for my old band Barefoot Truth in 2014, I believe. We did like a reunion show, and he I played a few solo songs from my new material because I was trying to expose my old band's audience to my new music and try to encourage them to follow along because I'm still doing it. And he had opened the show and he sent me this song, The Darkness, or like a rough sketch of it after that show and said like, hey, like I've got this tune that I feel like is right in your wheelhouse of style and I sat on it for a long time, like until 2018 when I recorded Rise. So like 5 years almost went by. I had this song just sitting in my messages, and I kind of reopened it, and I was going through like that crossroads time, and that line was incredible. Like you know, every for every moment there's an ending, and every ending is a moment
Mm-hmm.
begun. Was so I was just like, man, that is incredible. Like, so I asked him, like, I was like, hey, remember that song? You mind if I actually record it and I add some of my own elements to it? Because it's this like that's life, right? This battle between light and dark, and trying to steer a course through those dark moments that will inevitably come in everybody's life. Um, and some people have more traumatic experiences than others, but it's really like we all experience things differently based on, our ability to handle those type of traumas and stuff. And like obviously you've been through hell on earth and you're still standing tall and because every mistake is a lesson, and every time you can get through that, you become stronger and more compassionate to other people who are dealing with those things, or who are on the other side of the conflict. And so that song in particular is always just it's been helpful to me too. And I'll quote the bridge on it because I kind of liked how this um, tied in, and these were lyrics that I came up with that kind of countered that darkness theme. So the bridge goes, and I kind of buried it because there's some singing over it too. But the bridge is the light; it will guide you, a vision that calls. Trust in the lessons, the summits, the falls. Time for reflection, time to let go. The more that we wander, the less that we know.
Hmm.
And to me, that just like that was my experience with um, with that song is that like yeah, we've all had those dark moments and you where you have to grab the wheel and just drive out of it. And we the inevitably the sun always rises, and and what do you look like on the other side of it is really up to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I and trust me, just to say, like, I'm glad you co-wrote that. I can quote many other lyrics of yours. Like, one of my favorite ones, I think it was you need to like pour out your past to fill up your cup or something along those lines. That one hit me like a ton of bricks because I was like, there's no space for anything new in my life, right? There was a point in my life where I built my first entrepreneurial career on telling my story. Like
Mm,
my quote unquote clout as a paleo food blogger was the guy who beat bulimia with food and was sexually abused, but the story took over so much of my essence that there was no space to be the guy on the other side. Like there was nothing. It was
mm,
like I kept writing chapters, but there was a conclusion. And so that conclusion was I went to the jungle, came home, and I walked away from a 7-figure company overnight and gave it away. Deleted social media, changed everything. And I was like, I can't anymore. Best decision I've ever made in my life. But that line is massive. And then another one, pick one in Adam and Eve if you want to get your spirit right. Just give me the keys. That one
mm.
gets me every single time. Um, I want to know, like, it's even like hard to phrase this question. Like when you're writing these things, right? Like, is it from a place of like you're writing to yourself, you're feeling? Is it like streams of consciousness? Like when I listen to some of your lyrics that like touch my soul, when I read them, they blow my mind. Like in the simplicity, but the complexity of all of them. And I
Mm.
want to know, like you talked about earlier, like being on the surfboard. I feel like, as somebody who's a creator, I would say you're kind of like a conduit in a lot of ways, like a deliverer of truth. Like, do you just go throughout the day and like you'll see something and it hits you, or you'll have a moment with your kids and you'll document it? Like, what does that creative process look like to get down to some of this? Because I feel like it could be I'm all day and I'm getting hit with lyrics, or like, do you ever like intentionally create containers to go write? Like, what's that process like to get to something like this?
Oh, it comes in a lot of different forms, I guess.
Mm.
Like, if I'm really raw and just feeling, um, you know, that I need that kind of nurturing hand of playing music and just being alone, then that's often when, something really vital will come out, like a family tree or whatever, and that's usually just stream of conscious.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm working on a song like Adam and Eve, took me a little while because the lyrics are pretty rapid fire and
Yeah.
there's a lot of them. So I mean, it took me a while just to memorize it. So I would certainly, I'd be out surfing, and oftentimes you get like 20, maybe 30 seconds at the most on a wave if you're riding it, right? The rest of the time you're paddling. So when you get into the wave, you kind of have like this this free flow section to improvise on. And a lot of times I'd be humming the melody in my head, and I would just, a lot of times I'll just start kind of, people must think I'm nuts when I'm going down the wave because they see my lips moving and I'm kind of like dancing and grooving and just like, but to me, like that's like I'm riding this piece of energy that was formed thousands of miles away, and it's like this last waltz, right? With this, the wave crashing on shore is the end of that energy's life cycle, and I'm enjoying this experience with it. Um, from a human standpoint, that's just so, to me, that's just like so like unbelievable. It's like what could be a cooler, experience in life than to have that intimacy with Earth and energy that, as it's on its dying breath. So like it's such a creative space for me. So yeah, I'll do a lot of like just freestyle lyrical runs when I'm on a wave. And then I hope that I hope if I get something really good, I'll paddle in and I'll write it down or record it on my phone. Um, I have so many voice memos and bizarre videos of me in the middle of the night with I get a melody in my head and I get up and my wife's like, shut up, and I just got to sing this real quick. And, I'll sing it in my phone and I'll listen to it the next day. I'm like, what the hell? That's bizarre. But, some of them turn into to actual songs. And um, so you just never know. For me, it's just like, just we have the technology now to just save it all, just put it all out there, and then you'll have tidbits to grab when you're in the songwriting mode.
What I love
So
is the correlation, like as a creator, right? Like I do the same thing. I've gotten up at 3 a.m. to write the event flow or that one email sequence that I needed. I'm like, oh, there's this idea on how I can teach this concept differently. And I love technology for that. Like it's capturing it. And what I've had to learn how to fall in love with is capturing it in the moment, but not obsessing about it. Like earlier, like to full circle this, you're like, if I'm forcing a song to be finished, it's normally not good. And I use that kind of fleeting method now where like I'll catch pieces and I just make sure I own them somewhere and they tend to kind of
mhm.
fall back into place. So there's one more lyric that I wanted to ask you about. This one rings near and dear to my heart, and I think it's really prevalent right now. And it's standing with warriors on the right side of history, and
Mhm.
that is something for me, like looking back at this episode, we talk about like alignment, right? We talk about legacy. We talk about, being in our truth, not making a Taylor Swift album, like all of these
Mhm.
things, like, and I look at it as like sovereignty. So, like, what does that mean to you? Like, to stand with the warrior on the right side of history. And then what is that for you? Like if one of the things that I love hearing from people is like you have your kids, your drive, like how you want to be, you're built on integrity. But like what would you say is standing on the right side of history? Like what does that mean, like being a warrior, like with your art, creation, music? Like I would just kind of love for you to unpack that.
Yeah, I think the main um, issue we're seeing a lot is this kind of painting. You're either on one side or the other,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially in this country. And I wish that we could, our leaders would remove themselves from that somehow. I mean, it's hard because look, the media it feeds off of that, and they are the ones who really um, paint that picture more than anything, in a lot of ways. But I think we can use our own eyes and ears and listen to people speak.
Mm-hmm.
And um, my hope is that I will always choose the side of compassion for those who are less fortunate than myself. And I will always take time to listen and really, because there's so many things that are so complicated, right? And everybody's, um, beating their chest like, well, if you're a BLM person, then you hate cops, and that's just not the case. And if you don't support BLM, you're a
Mm-hmm.
white supremacist, and that's not the case either, right? There's just like there's these staunch kind of rivalry that we've kind of been forced with because of social media and the way that your social circle gets kind of recycled to you end up seeing it's like an echo chamber, right? That's what they
Mm-hmm.
call it. You see only what you're interested in and what you're in alignment with, and that breeds just contentment for the other side. And I just want I just think that you know if we would all just like you were saying earlier, I think before we started podcasting, like go out and sit with a tree and just to witness
Yeah.
the witness life in its real form, and like that tree doesn't see sides or anything, it's just trying to survive. And there's so much we can get from nature, I think, that opens our hearts to the fact that we're really just we're just an infinite speck of matter in this huge picture. When you zoom out, things become a lot easier to the perspective. It becomes a much better. I feel like it's just we're so narrowly zoomed in on what we like and what we don't like right now that's causing a lot of the issue. And I think if we would just pause, breathe more, and instead of kind of going into every situation so tense and tight and angry before anything even happens, um, that she just woke up. Yeah. Can you go get her? Okay. Sorry.
It's okay. We'll wrap in a second.
um, my wife's home now, so
Okay, perfect.
she's going to get her. Yeah. Um, uh, anyways, yeah. So that's kind of that's the right, being on the right side of history is really, is all those things combined is being being a person with compassion and really hearing out all sides of the story before you jump to conclusions. And then you do have a better understanding of the situation, that you do the right thing and you stand for those that are less fortunate than you and are being oppressed by whatever the system is or whatever the situation is. A lot of the songs on Rise were written for, the water protectors. I've, deep connection and roots to indigenous culture in this country, and I don't need to give you a history lesson on it, but it hasn't been all rosy, as you can imagine. And they're still dealing with, their lands are being overrun with pipelines and things like that, and there's just so much wisdom that you can learn from these elders, these people. So it's yeah.
Sorry, we'll keep
Anyway,
the beautiful.
sorry
We'll,
so
no,
much.
we'll keep that beautiful sound in. Yeah, I love it. I'm gonna lighten heart. I only have a couple questions and they're really short. So, favorite food?
Favorite food. Jeez. I mean, I love avocados.
Mm-hmm.
So anything with avocados in it is good for me.
That's good. I'm a chocolate chip pancake guy. I will forever be that
Oh,
little
well,
that little that little.
pancakes are, yeah.
Yeah.
Pancakes are definitely on the top five list. Burritos, uh, yeah.
What?
Especially after surfing, a burrito is like just the ultimate. It's like putting a small infant in your body
Oh yeah, you
after.
earned that one. You earned that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then, what are you currently reading, or one of your favorite books?
So uh, I'm almost finished with another artist, a friend of mine, Stephen Kellogg. If you're not familiar, you should check out his music as well. Amazing songwriter, been at it for even longer than me, and he actually just published a book, and it's incredible because it it just really paints a picture of a struggling artist in such a beautiful way, and he's a family man too, so I just connected really well with it, but um, I can't remember the name of it, but it's his only book. His name is Stephen Kellogg. A
I'm
lot of
sure.
great wisdom and lessons in there, and he has four daughters, so
Oh yeah, there's
you know,
wisdom in that.
yeah, that alone is just understanding how you cope with that.
And then what like so I'm that guy that has like a favorite song or like a favorite artist, but like who is like one of your favorite artists or like one of your favorite songs? Could be one of your own or anything.
There's a band from New Zealand called Fat Freddy's Drop,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like my workout music, but they have a song called Hope for a Generation, and it's just it's like a repetitive mantra type of line where they just say hope for a generation, just beyond our reach, not beyond our sight. Hope for a generation. And it just like builds and builds and builds. It's a very like, electronic and reggae kind of
Mm,
undertones. But oh man, it just like really, when you just kind of just keep repeating those type of things to yourself, it really does help. It convinces you that when we're going to be okay, and that our children are going to be okay, and I'm going to do everything in my power to help paint a less bleak picture for them,
mm.
in my lifetime at least.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll unpack this on another one, but we just had my friend Jim Quick on, who's like one of the leading memory brain experts in the world. And he always says your brain is your supercomputer. And what you're thinking is programming that computer on how to run. And what you said earlier, where you write songs to yourself, you sing them to yourself over and over and over on stage, is like you're healing
Hmm.
yourself and writing that program. And that's how I listen to music as well. And so for everybody listening to this, I have two challenges for you. Challenge number one is go find Will Evans on Spotify. I'm going to make my recommendations: Adam and Eve, The Darkness, and Rise. Those are my three cardio jams. Like, those things take me on a journey. Tears, laughter, dry heaving, depends on the workout. But either way, they're absolutely soul filling, for me at least. But I'm going to challenge everybody. And I've never talked about this on a podcast, and Will's here with me, so I'm going to talk about it right now. I spent 3 years not consuming any music or any content with any lyrics or anything except what I intentionally put in, which was books and then just shamanic music. And I recently added in Will and a couple of his friends, because I feel like it's programming my soul and programming my subconscious on how to love and how to be. And so I'm going to challenge everybody for the next week to be aware of what you listen to. When you're in the car, either use stillness or intentionally put something on. Put on something with intention. Put something on to fill your soul, to take you on a journey, and protect
Mm.
it, because you're either writing your programming or you're silencing your intuition if you're putting on some trash. And so spend some time in that silence and in that stillness, because it actually makes a difference. And I'm telling you, we're all creatives, we're all entrepreneurs, we're all out here doing things that are making the world different. And it all comes from within. There's no answers outside of us. And so program that stuff to think it, to feel it, to be happy about it, and then give yourself space. Love space. Space is amazing to find it. So, Will, I always ask everybody at the end of this episode one question. And so I just handed you a virtual tattoo gun. Everybody listened to this episode, but they forgot all of it. And you have a tattoo gun to tattoo anything on their soul that they will remember. They will remember it forever. What would your parting words of wisdom or your tattoo for their soul be?
Oh, geez. Like, like lyrics?
No, lyrics, a takeaway, a thought, like anything that comes up to you, that you want everybody to take away and remember forever.
Um, I'm gonna tap into my French Canadian roots here, and I'm gonna say cherchez la vérité, which translates to seek truth.
Mm.
I think that is such a simple, um, you know, two words, right? But so much within what does that mean? And for me, it's being true to who you are, and um, representing yourself and your family in in such a positive way, and a peaceful and humble, connected way. Yeah, that's what I would
I,
tattoo.
I,
Seek truth.
I, I love it. I might go get that tattooed. I have open fingers and hand space, so I might work on that
There you
because
go.
I love that one. I love that one. So,
Yeah.
Will, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for letting me fanboy, cry, be here. It's been an absolute pleasure. And so, everybody listening, Spotify #1, Will Evans. Like I said, I'm going to have you recommend start with The Darkness, Rise, and Adam and Eve. Those are just my favorites, but there's plenty of other good ones. find him on Spotify, and then do me a favor and DM him on Instagram your favorite song. And so Will Evans Music on Instagram, he's there. You'll see his absolutely adorable children as well, because they are there. And he responded to me, which is how I got him on the show, and so it was an absolute gift. So Will, thank you so much for being here. Anything else? Any save rounds for everybody, or are you good?
No, it's my pleasure to be with you and speak with you. Thank you so much for listening to my music and for helping to connect it to other folks. That's really that inspires me so much to keep creating and to just keep kind of humble hustling, as I like to put it.
Yeah, well, you're not allowed to retire because I enjoy your music too much. So you got to
Okay,
keep
good.
going. I'll figure out whatever
Well,
we got to do to keep that going.
well, I've got a whole album or two albums at least of material ready to go. So we're getting ready for that next chapter, and can't wait to keep sharing this, keep sharing this music and this journey with you all. So thank you for being a part of it.
Of course, man. Yeah, hang around for a second as I close the episode. So everybody, thank you for listening. This was another episode of the Mind of George show where, I think it belongs in a straitjacket, but you're crazy enough to stick around with me. And so I will either see you in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs. But either way, remember, relationships always beat algorithms. Take some time to take a breath, take in nature, take in your space, fill your soul, and go check out Will Evans' music. Have an absolutely beautiful day, and I will see you in the next episode.